For more about this grand vision, let's turn back to our main anchor, Yang Rui, over there.
Thank you, Mang Mang. When China became the second biggest economy, that gave rise to self-inflation, being narcissistic, and a little bit too assertive. Those are the phrases that are being employed by the international society to characterize what's happening in China, and they express their collective fear as to the global implications of China's rapid economic development. Now, when we look at the comparison between US dream and Chinese dream, that reminds me of what JFK, John Kennedy, said. Don't ask what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your own country. Then, in this area, perhaps we can look at why young people tend to be more individualistic and selfish. Does it mean that we are losing this generation? Dr. Zhang.
Well, I don't think so. To be individualistic doesn't necessarily mean be selfish. I think Chinese dream will have to be dependent on these individuals striving for their self-realization, without which there's no Chinese dream to begin with. But and on that regard, I think the Chinese people are as patriotic as anybody. There's no question about it. But there's a difference between patriotism and nationalism.
That's very controversial, I'm afraid.
But
when the Americans love their country, they say this is a patriotism. But when Chinese love their country, they are described widely by the Western media
My
as
patriotism,
nationalistic.
Your nationalism, it's always like that.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
But for love of the country, I think that would require a kind of love beyond love of your tradition, your culture, your way of life. It has to do with a certain love of your social system, your civil institutions, your political culture, and down to all these details as your healthcare system, the air quality, housing policy, all these concrete things. I think these are the areas when Chinese dream is being generated. But also, this is also an area of great uncertainty or controversy.
Yes, Dr. Zhang, you have put your finger on a very interesting and controversial point as to whether most Chinese, if not the silent majority, feel happy. In a survey conducted by CCTV, China Central Television, those polled say, I'm not sure I'm very happy because of the environmental decline, food safety, so on and so forth, particularly the issue of corruption. What do you think of the growing dissatisfaction among the rank and file?
Well, I think that you just hit it on the head. The ecological civilization has already been articulated by President Xi, and that is really what's coming out as potentially the core of the China dream. And it's already been articulated as having, multiple areas, not only the environment itself, but also in political life, economic factors, and culture, heritage are all being part of the ecological civilization. And then this is also being rolled out. We're working with a working group with the Ministry of Environment now on the plans, and this will involve new types of growth driven by renewable, efficient energy, but also in the media to change people's values, to care more about the environment, to care more about their heritage, their culture as part of the greater environment. And the ecological civilization, in this sense, could really be not only China's contribution to its own people, but globally, because the past decade, the economic miracle is also an ecological nightmare, not only for China, but for the whole world right now. And this type of rethink of value is what's going on in the West as well. And that's where a lot of the traditional Asian values of care for society more than the self are actually being imparted into Western societies and are part of what we call the progressive economic movement that you see in America and Europe right now, which are very much against the old oil oligarchies, just as President Xi and this Congress is now really trying to take down the state monopolies on oil, energy, gas, chemicals, which is in fact the polluters. Yeah. They're the same
when
institutions in America.
When we look at the issue of whether you are happy or not, according to the survey of CCTV, you have to take a second look at the future of the novel Hish, as well as behavior of the middle income families. Many of them are considering proactively immigrating to industrial nations, given the hazardous fog that plagues most of our country, China here. They are seriously concerned about the health of their children. They want to send their children abroad for better education, and migrant workers in urban areas want their children to have better education and themselves better health. So what do you think of the current mindset of the urbanites as well as the novel Hish in terms of their dreams, either in this country or in the other side across the Pacific Ocean?
The Nouveau Riche, maybe it's a separate issue, but if we focus on the urban middle class, I think you cannot blame them for wanting to have various options, and they do have options. That's a sign of Chinese society's success in the past decades. But I think the smog, if there's any silver lining in the smog thing, which is terrible, I think it forces the Chinese people to realize how serious this ecological consequence is. Chinese people do not like to be lectured by whoever saying, "Oh, you cannot have cars. If all Chinese have cars, that will face the end of the earth." That kind of lecturing does not work. But however, the Chinese people will have to realize. I think they are realizing the fact that the Chinese dream is fundamentally and concretely about finding a way out of this dilemma. And we have to do just as much with much less, if not try to do more with much, much less.
Perhaps that has a lot to do with the necessary and inevitable sacrifice that we have to make to pave the way for constructing happiness for our children and children's children. You are watching